is LAINN, and welcome to the LifeKraft podcast. LifeKraft is passionate about helping you live your everyday life better by sharing inspiration, awareness, and tools to enable you to create a fulfilling life. What would your life look like if you didn't let any setback hold you back? That's the question I asked myself after having the pleasure of speaking with our guest, entrepreneur, author, and podcaster, Lebo Pule. Lebo's life was filled with challenges, seeming setbacks and bumps along the way, but when you listen to her story, you realize how her mindset showed her that life was simply stretching her to her next level every time. We talked about her teenage pregnancy, building a $1 million business only to go bankrupt, and finding the essence of life when you're feeling stuck. Be sure to share your thoughts and takeaways with us in a positive review or tag at the LifeKraft and at Lebo Pule on social media and let us know what your aha moment was. Enjoy the episode. Lebo, welcome to the LifeKraft podcast. It is an honor to speak with you, and it is always nerve-wracking to interview someone who is such a great interviewer, but I'm very excited about our conversation today because I know that you're a phenomenal woman with so much wisdom, so much insights, and so much just pure service that you can offer our listeners that I'm just honored to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. No, actually, the nerves are the other way around. Interviewers make the worst guest, apparently. So I'm just nervous that I'm not going to forget that it's the other way around. And then I start asking you questions. So we are together in the nerves.
Absolutely. And if it goes that way, we'll just let it be. That's why I like these conversations. They're usually so authentic. And I know how that is. You might just sneak in a little coaching question there or two for me. But yeah. For the people who don't know you yet, which I loved researching you. I love just digging into you and your story and what you've done. You're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, you're a principal, you're an author, you are a podcast host. It's just phenomenal, all of the things that you are in regards to what you create for this world and how you experience this world. And you have a great little tidbit on your website that says that you view life as a school and you are here to learn. And I always think that that is such a beautiful way of looking at life and reframing the way that you perceive this reality. But I'd like to know, what's been something or experience for you that you went through in your younger days that shaped you to realizing life is like a school?
Oh, thank you for the well wishes. One of the things that might surprise you is that people like me don't get a lot of praises. I think people think we know. We get a lot of love, we get a lot of attention, but not a lot of outright I'm inspired by you. So it's always, so whenever it comes to me, I'm like, I need to take a breath. Let me start with the early days. What shaped my life? What are some of the things that shaped my life? I always say that you need to look at your childhood to find what it is that you're here to do. And when I think of my childhood, I remember the earliest memories are two. One was me sitting in front of a Sunday school teacher, listening to Bible stories. I love stories. And that's why I'm such a storyteller. And the second one was me teaching. I used to teach anyone and everyone, my siblings, young or older. When there were no siblings or no children, I would put stones and little dolls and teach those. So that was a first sign that I am about helping and teaching and knowledge bringing in the world. Another pivotal moment that is not related to teaching, but it sort of shaped my life to be the woman that I am, was a bullying that happened when I was a little girl growing up in Alexandra. Alexandra, for your listeners, if they don't know, it's a township in Johannesburg and one of the roughest, one of the most populated right now. Never used to be like that. But I was bullied by boys in that, when you grow up and you're a little girl and you look kind of pretty, and the boys sort of want to talk to you and you don't want to talk back, and they will push you around and slap you around. And I used to be that girl that fights back. I would literally push back and I would fight back. And I was known to stand up for myself. And I think the ability to stand up for myself at such a young age gave me the strength to face anything in life. And Melissa, I have faced incredible odds. And I think that muscle to stand up and say, no, come on, I'm going to fight back. So I think those are the two, as far as the early days are concerned. You know, one very positive of me understanding that perhaps I'm a teacher in the world, and the other one that built my strength.
That's brilliant. And I always think that what you said about you need to look at your childhood to know your purpose is such a big revelation. We can stop the podcast right there and everyone can just go and think about that for the rest of the year and they'd be like really well off. But being so clear on those pivotal moments in your life is such an asset. Just doing that little bit of self-psychology. And I've learned in my own life that a lot of the times the things we considered failures at the moment were one of our best lessons and things that actually could catapult us into a whole nother level of success, a whole nother version of ourselves. Was there something that happened in your life that you considered being a failure in that moment that actually led to one of the biggest breakthroughs of your life?
Yeah, there's a few. How much time do we have? I'll continue on the trajectory of early life. And one of the biggest, I don't know if failure is the right word, Melissa, but challenges, like a big pivotal moment again that happened to me was when I was 15 years old. I fell pregnant and I had my daughter at 16. And as if that's not a huge thing already, I was also in matric that time. I was one of those kids that went to school early. People, your listeners must buy my books, guys, especially book one. So I went to school quite early. I mean, like 5 years old. So by the time I was 16, I was already in matric. So being pregnant in matric, oh, Jehovah, that is supposed to take you down. You know, I don't care who you are. It's supposed to render you damaged goods, forget about the future, forget about your life. You're going to end up in Alex with probably 5 more kids and working as a domestic worker. And no offense to domestic workers, but it was supposed to do that. Instead, and I remember almost vividly, Melissa saying to myself, I'm going to make it in the world. And this is why I also named my daughter Hope. My daughter's name is Solfeggio, and Solfeggio means hope. Oh. And unbeknown to me, I didn't name her Hope and say, you are my hope in the world. It was an instinct that in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that's why I named her Hope. I named her Solfeggio because I knew that there is more to life than this setback. And she remains one of the biggest blessings of my life. You know, if we can go, do you mind us going to the spiritual world and whatever? Do you mind?
Never.
I strongly believe that my daughter is one of the people who were brought into this world to help me. As we speak, she's one of my team members. She works with me at the school with the newsletter. She's the editor. She's the one that manages the podcast, certain aspect of the podcast. But more than that, she is almost a deputy mom, a deputy parent to my other 2 sons. She's a partner, and sometimes I feel like I put too much on her, but I feel like she can take it. And I remember once she said, take the support, accept the support. And I feel like I also give her the support back. So having her that early in the world, and one of the things she said is this: we met in the stars and I didn't want to leave you, so that's why I had to come into your life so early. Oh, Melissa, you're tearing up.
That is so beautiful, and she's such a gorgeous soul. And
she's amazing.
I always think living with the realization that your children come in to be your guides sometimes.
Yeah.
That they come
They're
in
helpers.
here to teach you. They're helpers.
Yeah.
And they can be such beautiful support in your life, and just allowing that.
Yeah.
It's just a brilliant way of looking at that entire situation.
They come through us. They come through us to help us. Some teachers come as children, and some teachers come as you and I. And I believe that she was one of the people that said, don't worry, I got your back. Another very, very pivotal moment that happened to me was quite a bit later in my life. I've always sort of been entrepreneurial. I suppose it has to do with just the spirit that I am, because I believe you get given a particular soul and a particular spirit so that you can withstand a lot of things. I could never, ever work in corporate. So I've always sort of been entrepreneurial. So at 24, I started this office furniture business. 25, I start making a little bit of money. No, maybe not 24, Melissa, sorry. You know, I'm old now, so the times the times are a bit different. At 26, 27, I start an office furniture business. 28, I make a lot of money. 29, I'm considered, and I put it in inverted commas for those who are not seeing, I'm considered a millionaire because of how much turnover I've made in the business, and I'm a sole owner of the business. At 29, I buy this massive house. That's 28, 29, I buy this beautiful house, pool, garden guy, domestic worker, you know, the works, and I'm just 28. And at 30, it all came crashing down. I went bankrupt. Once again, your listeners would have to buy the book. And the going bankrupt is a combination of things. It's lessons of being a young entrepreneur, not understanding turnover versus profit, not understanding that you can't, in your first 2 years, go and buy houses that you can't afford. It looks like you can afford it, but you actually can't. You have to earn it. In other words, you have to give back to the business, reinvest back to the business, reinvest. Eventually, you get to a point where actually I can afford a home. I did not need to buy that home. I did not need to have those cars. I could have waited. I could have reinvested back. So that's one of the major reasons. Another one is the market is very interesting in office furniture. It changes all the time. I also relied heavily on tenders because, you know, tenders, you make a lot of money. So it was a combination of things. But the point is, those two, my pregnancy and my bankruptcy, shaped this principal Lebo Pule you're talking to.
Those are two big things that shape people. And I think the reason why I love asking questions like that is for so many people, whether they've gone through that and stopped, or whether they might still face something exactly like that and feel the need to stop. I want to encourage them with stories like yours not to stop. It is something that can be changed into something beautiful, but it's all got to do with your mindset, your spirit, your drive. And when you change the way you look at a situation, that situation will start changing. And I love that. But you mentioned that you are a principal, and I love the fact that you have a school. And I would love for you to just share a little bit more about how you started that, what journey went on in your life to get to a point where you're now a coach, you've got Stretch School, you're a principal, and you're doing all of these amazing things.
You know what? I love that you keep referring to principal. So there's a backstory towards it. I never named myself principal. It's my students who called me principal. And where the principal comes from is because I'm highly structured. I'm a highly system-based, structure, routine, process person. So for an example, if I say we start a lesson at 10:30, whether that lesson is a text in a Facebook group or it's my live or whatever, we are not going to start at 10 or at 11, and you are not going to come in after 2 to want to comment on that. So it was like a tongue-in-cheek type of principle, but the name stuck. Now back to the school. Why the school? So you'll recall that when I started, I spoke about my early childhood understanding that this is what I loved, this is what I was drawn to, this is what made me come alive, which was the acquiring of knowledge and the sharing of knowledge, whatever knowledge there was when I was 6 years old. Now, throughout my life, Melissa, from as early as age 22, I started ingesting and reading books that were way older than me. You know, your classics, you name any spiritual classic, I have probably read it. Psychology, philosophy, spirituality, your Wayne Dyers of this world, Louis Hayes, How You Can Heal Your Life, Jan Levenzen, Marianne Williamson, you know, A Return to Love. I would highly encourage everybody to read A Return to Love. Deepak Chopra, The Conversations with God. I started reading those books at 22 and I ate them up. I would read them as if it's hot cakes. And I always say to people who come to me who don't know if they have a healing or a teaching gift, and one of the questions I asked is, how are you on knowledge acquiring? If you struggle with reading and following instructions and listening to other teachers, you probably are not, it's not your line. You need to love to ingest knowledge. But at the time, I didn't know. All I knew was I just love to read and I love to apply these spiritual laws. I know you can heal your life. You know, just conceptually, intellectually, I would get it. Little did I know that it's preparing me for this time in my life. Little did I know that it's waiting for me to fail in the office furniture business, because if the office furniture business succeeded, I would not have found my teaching route. Little did I know that it's part and parcel of where I'm going. When I was down and out, because when I went bankrupt, it was real bankruptcy. It wasn't, I can't pay rent a few months, and it wasn't that. It was house repossessed, car repossessed, everything attached. Before they take the house, Melissa, they start attaching your furniture because you can't pay your suppliers, and your suppliers don't laugh. They're not your friends. The suppliers, they want their money, they attach furniture. So my children, at the time I had 2, were seeing furniture go out. They were seeing electricity go off. They were seeing water being switched off. They were seeing knocks at the doors. To this day, I mean, not even to this day, I think I'm better now. But for the longest time, I would jump when I hear a door knock. I was that traumatized because of the knocks of the sheriff. A phone call, a phone ring. I used to put my phone on silence because the ringtone would remind me of those days that I used to just be in so much trouble. So it was tough trouble, such that I went back home in Alex. When I was back home in Alex, I would read these books. I would apply what I can apply. And I got a quick job here and there. I've always been lucky, by the way, where even in my down and out moment, I would always find a way of getting income. So I got a job at social development, and then I got another job at Regenesis. Again, all this is in the book, guys. And my journey to begin teaching started so incredibly strangely. It started on Facebook. I joined Facebook in 2009, and I instinctively knew that I must answer that question that Mark Zuckerberg asks. Mark Zuckerberg asks, what's on your mind on that update status? And I would always just make sure that I share what's really and truly on my mind. So I started out just posting quotes, quotes from the greatest quotes. And then I would explain the quote. For an example, a quote like, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And then I'll unpack what that quote means for my followers and my friends at the time. And from what's on your mind, I started sharing what's in my heart. From what's in my heart, I started sharing what's in my stomach, because the stomach is your second brain. It's your gut. It's where your knowledge is. It's where your power is. And from there, I started sharing what's in my womb. And the womb is where we create stuff. So I would create content. I would say to my followers, every Tuesday, I'll post about what life is teaching me. Or every Wednesday, we'll talk about entrepreneurship. Every Thursday, we'll talk about money. And that's how I started teaching. I think I taught for free on Facebook public wall for about 7 years.
Wow.
I started the group called Stretch with Lebo Pule, which then became a school. That was 2017. Then I formalized the program. Then the rest is history. The school is online now. It's called Stretch School. It's no longer Stretch with Lebo Pule because I want Melissa to be a teacher. I want Karabo to be a teacher. It's a school.
I just have to ask, with all of that beautiful synchronicity, point number one, I know so many entrepreneurs who would not teach for free for 7 years. I know so many that would come to me and say, I'm a health coach, I'm a coach in some regard, and I've done this for a year or two, and why am I not making money? Then I'm like, because you're not serving yet. You're not just serving your audience yet. I served for many, many years before I got my first client that paid me. But I had so many clients before them that I just served. And that's a big thing. And then secondly, what I would love to know is why the name Stretch?
Okay, let me answer the serving thing because I think you're on point here. You're a typical teacher. The process of giving and receiving begins with giving. And depending on how big your gift is or how big your offering in the world is, the giving will take long. You will have to serve for a while because the returns will be just as much. You'll be divinely compensated in ways that you will never even understand what's happening. You'll think we give first, and when we give, we actually don't know that we are giving. You don't know that you're serving until it starts to feel, you have to feel it in your heart that, oh, okay, I think it's time to ask for something in return. And you will not struggle to get people who will pay you. It might be one, it might be two, but they will start trickling in. So it's just one of the processes.
In my own life, I was exactly the same, just consume, consume, consume. And I was the little girl that would sit and explain to you just enthusiastically how all of the things that I read actually work and how it fits into life. And did you get that? And did you understand that? And my mother would always say, like, that is not what I read. And I was like, how is that not what you read? Look at how this links with that thing. And it's so deep and it's so awesome. And this is how you live it. That's how you live whatever you just read. And I was always very inquisitive. And the one thing that I always remember was when I started accepting who I was, embodying who I was, this part of me, right? Because we're so multifaceted. It's amazing. But this healer, teacher, coach part of me, I always told my partner, my boyfriend who I'm with now, I always told him, you know, this is never going to go away. I might not be a coach forever, but this is going to be me forever. This is just who I am. It's in you.
It will change form. It will change form.
And whether we are shopping at Checkers or Woolies or wherever, and I can see something and I can serve someone, or whether I do it and someone gives me an energy return in the form of money or whatever, this is who I'm going to be. I'm always going to digest life, and whatever I've digested, I will give it to you and say, this is what you need to look out for. This is how you can. And I think that's how people can get into the whole serving mentality. It's not you go and serve and you're the least. It's kind of something that's in you and it just flows out of you. It's just like, what else am I supposed to do? How else am I supposed to be? But if that's you, follow that.
Yeah, if you have an inclination to see patterns, to make links, to connect, to remember, to see things that others don't see, to explain a book, if you have the need to explain a particular quote, you have the teaching gift. You definitely have a teaching gift. Yeah, so maybe come through and let's help you. Why the name Stretch? I love the question. Stretch for me is such a versatile word, Melissa, in that it's both gentle and hard at the same time. If you want to flex a particular muscle, if you want to open up your hips, which is something I'm trying to do right now, my hips are a bit too tight. I can't do it any other way except to stretch. If you want to grasp new knowledge in your life, something that is going to disturb an old pattern, an old habit, an old learning, you can't immediately just grasp it. You need to stretch around it. If you want to forgive someone or to embrace a particular difficult situation, your heart needs to stretch around it. So it's such a beautiful word in that it's both effort and no effort at the same time. And I feel that what I teach at Stretch, it's such intense knowledge that you can't do it if you are not prepared to stretch. It's either it's going to go over your head and think, oh, I believe they're crazy, or it's going to shock you too much. Think of an elastic band. You stretch and then you go back. You stretch and then you go back, and you become supple and easy and malleable. It's a beautiful way. Period.
It is a beautiful
So Stretch
word.
School is a school so that we can bring a Melissa as a teacher at Stretch, and people will know that, oh my God, she says no sugar, but then I can stretch around that.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
It's just a beautiful word to use about learning in particular.
I love how you said that it's both hard and soft. Stretching isn't breaking or really putting so much force in there. It's just stretching, but it's still a soft way. It's a beautiful word.
Yeah, you will feel when I mean, you do yoga. If you do yoga, you'll understand stretching.
Yes.
And they say, I mean, yoga teachers always says that if you, let's say you're stretching a particular part, and if it's now getting sore, they always say, no, stop. You can't, don't push it. This is where you are now. Tomorrow you'll get further. And that's exactly my approach to teaching. I always say, do not crack your skull if you don't understand what a prostitute archetype is. Relax into the work. Yoga, they always say relax into the stretch. That's it. Best way to describe what I do in the school.
I would like to get into some advice that you can give our listeners because you are such an amazing teacher and coach.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would like that really comes up a lot, and I saw that on your website as well, and it's something I jotted down too, is people, whether it was because of what happened with the pandemic that kind of put brakes on a lot of people's dreams and visions and things, or whether it is just momentum in their life that took over. But a lot of people feel stuck. A lot of people want to change. A lot of people want to experience a whole different version of themselves and life, but it's like they either don't have the strength or they just feel stuck. It's like nothing they're doing is working. What advice do you have for someone that feels that way right now?
Maybe let's start with what's happening, what's causing the stuckness, what's happening in the world. And let's just delve into the spiritual space a little bit. The year 2020 was one of those years that were prophesied in ancient and sacred books that is going to reshape and reset a lot of things because, we don't listen. Human beings, we are the only creatures that just do not listen. We don't follow rhythms. We don't follow seasons. We don't follow anything. We want to eat a tomato in the middle of winter when it's out of season. So there's a lot that the earth, this energy, the spirit world is resetting. And part of resetting is that it's going to make you tired. So the whole world is tired. I mean, we are exhausted. I was just diagnosed in November last year with acute fatigue. So I needed to take it very, very easy. So that's what's happening. So the energy of exhaustion, the energy of stuckness, the energy of stagnation is not just you. It's not just your work. It's not just it's beyond that. And then it comes down to how we've lived our lives as humanity. We are the only species that ignore the natural rhythms of life. And one of my courses at Stretch is the law of rhythm. I don't know if you know this, Melissa, but the earth itself, farmers in ancient times, and when I say ancient times, I don't even mean too long ago, I mean like 200 years ago, they knew that for the land to bring about new harvest, better fruits, better vegetables, it needs a year off after every 7 years. I mean, it's even written in biblical books that there's a Sabbath day where you take rest. So year 7, they do not touch the land at all. By year 8, or sometimes even year 9, they start cropping and planting and all that. So we are in a place where we are so disoriented, so misaligned, so stuck, because we don't even know what our rhythm is. Sometimes you are stuck because you have been working at this firm for 10 years to pay the bills, but that has nothing to do with who you are and your gift in this world. Nothing to do with it. I would say start following how you feel every morning. For an example, one of the things I give to my coaching clients is follow the feeling. As you wake up in the morning, what are you drawn to? What is the feeling and what are you drawn to? If the feeling is take a walk, please take a walk, especially if you're on leave, guys. I mean, if they're still on leave, do that. If the feeling is no, stay longer in bed, please stay longer in bed. If the feeling is, take a journal and write that idea that you have. You know, you've always had this idea to start this project, start writing it down. Follow the feeling. And I know it will take some doing. It takes some time because we are not used to that. We are so automated. We want coffee. We start with social media. But I would ask you to please start feeling as you come back into this world, as you come back from sleep state, as your soul comes back to your body, start feeling what do you want me to do? Do you want me to take a walk? Do you want me to water the plants? Do you want me to drink water? Do you want me to, even food? We'll talk about food, you and I, because the food are guiding me. That's why I look so glowing. Even food will tell you, no, don't eat this, eat that. All those clues are trying to reset you so that you are out of the stuck mode and you are into something brand new. And this is coaching. I mean, this is what I help the people who want a purpose in life to start doing. Start listening in. I hope this was not too out there, too far-fetched.
No, that is why I asked you this type of question, because it's not to get those 5 tips on how to get unstuck. That's not how lasting change is formed. It's about understanding and gaining awareness. Then the actions will come naturally. But you need to understand why you are where you are.
Yeah.
And then have the awareness to see how it was created. And how you might still be creating it every day, even though you don't want to experience it, you're still creating it, and then taking inspired action. Inspired action. But I want to just ask you this. Why do you think, and I find myself doing it, but I've decided to make it a very powerful word. It's a powerful word for me. But why do you think we kind of shy away from the woohoo side of life? Because I know you can go woohoo. You can go deep into the metaphysical and the spiritual and the things like that. And that's what I love about you. And that's why we connected. And it's so important, but it's like when it comes to self-development, we can't, or we don't want to, or we shy away from that metaphysical side, that spiritual side, that listen to your gut, understanding energy, realizing that there are laws and forces that you might not see with your eyes and not learn about in business school, but that can bring you all the success that you've ever wanted. Why do you think as a collective we're still not very open to talking about it in the personal development space?
Oh my God. Again, another big question. And that's going to need another big answer. In the personal development space, people like you exist, people like me exist. So we are starting to talk about that. But the majority of people, especially executive coaching, and no offense really, executive coaching where you are employed by a corporate, where they want you to coach people on achievable results and give, produce rather. So why is it that people shy away from that, or we don't do that? It's because it doesn't serve the greater purpose of this machinery that is A, capitalism, B, greed and profit and big conglomerates and competition. And I love that you don't like competition. So it doesn't serve the system that operates this world right now. And the system that operates this world right now runs under the law of polarity. And the law of polarity is the law of opposites. So the one that's winning right now is compete, survival of the fittest. It's even in our languaging. It's even in our sports. It's even in our academia. It's even at work, the promotion, the climbing the corporate ladder. So if you are living in a system that requires you to be number one, to not be left behind, why on earth would you go and live in the Karoo and look at the bright blue sky? Because I always talk about the bluest skies. That why would you? It's really and truly because it doesn't serve the greater purpose, but it is incumbent upon you and I and other coaches listening and other spiritual teachers to bring back this ancient knowledge. Another thing is that we have been cut off from the natural world. Human beings think they're not part of the earth. They think they are just, if I can just go slightly deeper into the earthy, the woo stuff and why I believe that we are people of this earth. For you to come into this world and be Melissa that I'm looking at via Zoom, what do you need? You need a body. So the body is part and parcel of the earth. If you look at how the body is structured, our blood, the salt levels in our bodies is similar to the salt levels in the sea. There's something also about our feet that works very well with the earth itself. We are part of it. That's why we put earth in our mouths. That's why we eat earth. We eat the soil. The food that we eat comes from the dirt, and we eat it because we are part of it. If we eat anything that's not part of earth, and this is your world, if we eat anything that has ingredients, I will never forget what you said to me on the podcast. If it has ingredients, chances are it's not a natural food. So we get healthy and well and strong when we eat from Mother Nature, and we get weak and weird when we don't eat directly from the source. And before we leave this earth, what do? We drop the body because the body belongs here. So this animal self of me is part and parcel of the earth. We even look like it. I mean, if you go into West Africa, deep in West Africa, the people look red like the sand. Anyway, you see, those are my passionate topics.
Mine too. That's why I love this. And I think we can be so disconnected, and especially, and I know this because this was my journey, people who are into gaining knowledge, we spend too much time on the spiritual plane too. And we forget that we are from the earth. You're supposed to enjoy this part too. You're supposed to get into nature. You're supposed to not learn anything for a while and just receive. You're supposed to eat the good food and do the things. And it is such a powerful thing to realize, as much as you are spirit, you are earth. And just enjoy that. I always say, I still want to be human. Even though I learn these things and read these principles and everything, I still want to be human. It's just one of the things. So I would love for us to get to the last couple of questions that we have. And the one that I always ask our guests, because I think you can learn so much from someone when they answer this question, is, what are the books or a book that has changed your life that you can suggest our listeners read?
Oh my God, I thought you'd never ask. There's a book that my followers who are listening, I know they're listening, will probably say it with me. The very first book that changed my entire life was written by a man called Scott Peck, and the book is called The Road Less Traveled. The Road Less Traveled. It's a classic of the classics. It combines psychology, spirituality, and philosophy, and it transformed the way I see things. And it's the first book when I was 22. The second one is another classic, You Can Heal Your Life by Louis Hay. Very, very, very good, very old, but wisdom of ages. And the third one would be A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. I'm a Black woman, and I feel conscious that I haven't mentioned a Black woman's book yet. But obviously, all of Iyanla's book also have a great impact, especially in the meantime. In the meantime, is the book to buy, is the book to, especially if you're starting in this healing journey, or you're disillusioned by church or religion or your work. In the meantime is the book to buy by Iyanla.
I can't believe we've come to the end of our conversation.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
But I want to keep it short so that we can definitely have you on the show again. That's my whole plan. But I want to ask you the last question that I ask all of our guests. And that is, what is one thing that we can do to live our everyday life better?
Can I give you what just came into my mind now?
Please.
Because I think that's the one. gratitude. And it took me a long time to actually to be grateful. And this is a typical A personality types where we want to wait until there's everything. There's all the results, there's all the followers, there's all this registration before you are grateful. And we do live in a culture of being grateful for the things, the material things that we see. But I've come to learn in recent days, and by recent, I mean 2-3 years, that gratitude starts with, oh, I woke up this morning. Oh, I might not have this, but I'm drinking a cup of coffee. And I know these things sound like, oh my God, people probably rolling their eyes. But the ability to have a cup of coffee that's warm, a warm bed, a roof. Because I'm telling you now, Melissa, there are people who would consider it a dream come true to live your life. So, with all your problems. Yeah. And so gratitude is a game changer. I've seen it with my own life, and it brings joy. When you're grateful, you see even more things that make you grateful.
That is it. I have a tattoo to remind me about the power of gratitude. It's one of the things that changed my life. And
really?
Yes, definitely. I didn't want to forget again. And we forget, and I'm very forgetful. But that's a limiting belief that I'm working on. But I used to be very forgetful. And I was very aware of the fact that, and you will know this too, you'll read a book, you'll go to the webinar, you'll listen to a masterclass, you'll get the inspiration, and you'll think, I'm never going to be the same after hearing this. And in 3 months, you are in hell again. And yeah. I know, because I knew life is cyclical, I might go down again. I need to just have something, that was my whole mindset, to remind myself of what is true.
Yeah.
And to know these tools, love, gratitude, being present in the now, having your 4 agreements that you commit to. Louise Hay as well is one of mine, from You Can Heal Your Life. All is well in my world. Not necessarily the world, but in my world. And just understanding the whole principle of as above, so below. So if I want to change something here on earth, I need to first change it in the spiritual realm, and vice versa. And just having that gratitude be something that is not something I do when something happens, but being a practice like yoga. Yoga can't just be something you do when you want to do yoga. If you want to transform, you have to see yoga as a science, as a technology that'll help you if you practice it. That means the days where there is no reason to do it, you show up. And that is what gratitude is for me as well. It is so big. So Lebo, I just want to take a moment. And I just want to acknowledge you for going on your own journey, for that 30-year-old that went bankrupt so that we could have the coach that sits before me now, for reading the books, for having the courage to listen to that first Facebook post prompt and say, I'm going to share what's on my mind. I have something valuable to say. I have something that might help someone. I have the courage to do this, to be vulnerable, to have it grow into an industry that is helping so many people stretch just a little bit better every day, a little bit better, so that life gets a little bit easier, so that they understand themselves a little bit better. And so that this entire journey that's supposed to be fun, that's supposed to be an evolution, the school of life, like you put it, that is supposed to be an adventure, can actually be that for them and not just suffering. So I just want to acknowledge you for your journey and your contribution so that we can sit and have these type of conversations. Thank you for that.
Jeez, why would you do that? I have another meeting. Oh my God.
Because you deserve
you
that.
Cry. Oh, wow. Thank you for seeing me. Really, I hate you for making me cry now. Thank you so much for seeing me.
Thank you for this. You've been such an amazing guest. I'm honored. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode and taking the time to invest in yourself and in your future. If you loved this episode, be sure to share it with us by leaving a positive review or tagging us in a post or in your stories. Share one thing that stood out or inspired you to live your everyday life better. This helps us create more meaningful episodes for you to enjoy. If you're not already following us on social media, be sure to follow @LifeKraft for more inspiration and tools to help you live your most powerful life. And remember, you always have the power to craft a better life for yourself, and we are here to help you do just that. We'll connect again in the next episode, and until then, keep creating a life that you're excited to wake up to. We enjoy bringing you interviews from experts and everyday people so that they can talk about their experiences and share information, tips, and what has worked for them on their journey towards a better life. However, remember that the opinions or advice of our guests and myself, the host, should not be taken as personal, actionable advice and is given as general information and education only. Please always remember to consult a qualified professional before implementing any medical, financial, legal, or other advice that you believe might work for you. LifeKraft is not responsible nor liable for your decision when implementing anything you hear on the podcast. Please listen and act responsibly. The opinions of our guests do not represent the opinions or views of LifeKraft or Melissa LAINN personally and are meant as information and general education only.